Revenge with Karen.
I'm a big boss now, Spencer bellowed, standing on a goddamn cafeteria table like he was about to announce the second coming of Steve Jobs. Except instead of unveiling a product, he pointed at me, Jessica, and yelled, "You're out." Effective immediately. Coffee cups froze midair. Forks stopped halfway to mouths. All I heard was that buzzing silence right before a car crash. Man just fired me in front of a dozen junior analysts and the entire facilities team while eating a protein bar and calling it cleansing the dead weight. I didn't say a word, didn't flinch. Just pulled the master campus keys from my bag, the ones I'd carried for 11 years, the same ring I used to unlock boiler rooms, secure server closets, and that one cursed sub-basement where the rats formed a union. Held it up like a bartender sliding a drink to a problem customer and said, "Good luck." He smirked like he'd just beat capitalism, like I was some glorified janitor who'd finally been escorted off the castle grounds. But what Spencer didn't know, what no one in that room knew, was that those keys weren't just for doors. They were for systems, legal filings, contracts, security tokens. A few of them didn't even open anything physical anymore. Authenticated infrastructure. They were the locks. Oh, and one more thing. If you're the kind of person who actually listens to this kind of story without hitting that little subscribe button or giving it a like, come on now, you'd let Spencer get away with this too, wouldn't you? Be better. Smash that like, tap subscribe, because trust me, you'll want to know how this mess ends. It only gets juicier from here. It helps the team keep serving these piping hot tales of office karma, fresh from the legal fryer. Back to our boy Prince. Spencer wasn't born, he was minted. You could smell the generational wealth coming off his overpriced cologne. He didn't climb a ladder. He floated in on a parachute monogrammed with his trust fund's initials. When the founder, his dad, stepped away for personal clarity, they named Spencer interim CEO, while the board tried not to puke. He won, and he was already calling the exec assistant babe, rearranging org charts like fridge magnets, and referring to himself in the third person. Spencer's not a micromanager, he told the DevOps team. Spencer's a macro visionary. Then came the purge. He started the morning by firing the company historian, Jerry, poor bastard, who cried quietly into his cardigan. Then he slashed the wellness budget, and 2 remote staffers over Zoom. He muted them halfway through their goodbyes and declared no more cubicle walls. We're an open battlefield now, but I was the prize, the power move. Spencer needed a scapegoat with a name people knew. He needed to prove that the old guard was done, so he took me out like a rusty file cabinet, loudly, publicly, with maximum spectacle. I didn't cry. I didn't protest. I didn't beg. I walked out past the reception desk, past the stunned interns, past that infernal motivational poster I always hated, "Teamwork makes the dream work," and straight to my car. I didn't drive home right away. I sat in the parking garage, staring at those keys in my palm. They felt heavier than usual, not with metal, but with memory, authority, leverage. Then I opened my glove box, pulled out the blue binder. Facilities Protocols Custodian Keys. 11 years ago, founder trusted me with a level of access that didn't come with a title. It came with liability. I was the named custodian on everything from digital infrastructure to physical lease renewals. Back when we had no budget and ran IT out of a converted closet, I was the one who stayed overnight during the ransomware scare. When the fire inspector said the basement server racks were illegal, I was the one who negotiated the fireproof waiver. I had authority, had credentials, I had signing power, and now they had a boy king who didn't know the difference between an access badge and a root certificate. Let him play CEO, let him throw tantrums and axe good people, because he just fired the one person holding the keys, literally and legally, to the castle's gates. And I didn't need to break anything. I just had to stop fixing it. My front door stuck like it always did, just a little to the left. When the foundation settled weird back in 08, I never fixed it. Kind of like that it pushed back, the way the world should when something ain't right. I kicked it open with my boot, dropped my bag by the cat's food bowl, and sat at the kitchen table with the grace of a woman who'd just been sucker punched by nepotism wrapped in Armani. I wasn't crying. I wasn't even angry, Not yet. Just quiet. There's a kind of silence that settles in your bones when the thing you've built, day after day, year after year, gets handed to someone who thinks compliance is a brand of gum. Spencer didn't just fire me. He amputated the nervous system and didn't notice the twitching. I got up, went to the hall closet, and reached behind the extra blankets. Pulled down the black and blue binder that hadn't seen daylight since the company's last earthquake drill. Abel said, Facilities Protocols Custodian Keys. Inside, everything Spencer didn't think to ask about. Every security access override, every vendor lockbox code, every just-in-case procedure the founder and I put in place back when we were still building servers out of Craigslist parts and praying the fire suppression system wasn't hooked to a sprinkler. And on page 1, my name. Jessica Sharp named Records Custodian. See, when you're not flashy, you don't demand corner offices or fancy titles. Folks forget what they've signed. But not me. I remember every meeting, every after-hours call with legal, every IT fire I put out with duct tape and institutional memory. I was written into the marrow of that company like asbestos, quiet, buried, and legally sticky. Flashback. 5 years ago, the founder handed me a pen and said, "We need someone who understands both the wires and the rules. Got the spine. Sign here, that signature." It put me on every federal compliance record, every infrastructure lease, every multi-factor admin key tied to the backbone of the campus. I was the fallback, the failsafe, the one they'd call when a vendor threatened to pull out or a data center started hiccuping at 3 a.m. You don't fire the failsafe. You transition her. You offboard her properly. You thank her. Hell, you beg. But Spencer, he wanted a headline. A power move. Now I had two things he didn't, leverage and time. So I started making calls. Quiet ones. Friendly ones. First was Melinda at Sim Vault Hosting. She picked up on the second ring. "Jessica, oh God, what happened? We just got a re-auth email bounce. Are you okay, Peaky?" I said. "Hey, just so you know, I'm no longer authorized to approve maintenance-level overrides on the Tier 3 servers." She went dead silent. "But your name's still the primary. Not my circus anymore." Then I called Joe at NextGrid, our security vendor for the badge systems and surveillance. He chuckled when I said I was out. That explains the dashboard errors. Spencer's people didn't even know we needed facial token matching reissued. They tried rebooting the lock server, froze it. Tell them to reach out to someone else. I'm not it. Each call was surgical. No bitterness, no sabotage, just absence. The sudden, deafening silence of 1,000 assumed tasks disappearing. I didn't have to say I was angry. The systems would say it for me. That night, I sat in my kitchen, binder open, sipping boxed wine from a mason jar, watching the company Slack implode from a burner login I forgot to delete. Anyone know why the vendor portal says pending credential reissue? Jessica used to handle this. Who has her certs now? Wait, what's a cert? They were unraveling. I wasn't even touching a thing. Just letting the machines do what they always did when left unsupervised. Spencer thought he fired a secretary with a key ring. What he actually did was pull the plug on the beating heart of the company and hand the cables to an intern with no idea which one was labeled "Do Not Touch." I took another sip. Tomorrow, I'd make a few more calls. But tonight, I let the silence stretch. Because for the first time in years, I didn't owe that place anything. And somehow, that felt louder than any speech I could have given in the cafeteria. The first sign something was wrong came at 7:12 a.m., when Spencer tried to swipe into the main building and the badge reader let out a long, disappointed bleep. He swiped again. Same sound. Then again, jamming the card harder, like it owed him rent. Nothing. A passing janitor, Carl, who'd worked there since the Bush administration, just shrugged and said, "Gotta jiggle it sometimes. Or maybe talk to Jessica?" Spencer turned the color of skim milk and barked, "She doesn't work here anymore." Carl nodded slowly. "Ah, well, that explains it," and walked off humming Free Fallin'. By 8:30 a.m., half the company was stranded outside in business casual, crowding around the badge readers like confused pigeons pecking at a locked bread box. IT got looped in. Spencer demanded answers. The head of IT, Ramish, saint of patience, calmly explained over speakerphone, "We can't provision new badge authorizations until we get the master override credentials transferred." Spencer, "So do it." Ramish, "We can't. The root user was Jessica. Silence. She's the only one who could issue new admin certs without triggering security flags. We emailed, got an auto reply. Spencer groaned. Can't you hack around it? She designed it to resist hacks. It's literally compliant with the federal tamper evasion protocol. In English, we're locked out, sir. By noon, payroll hit a snag. Not because the funds weren't there, because the routing systems were stuck in a validation loop. The finance team was frantic. Their director, Alondra, practically yelled into Spencer's office, "We need the second-tier authorization token." Jessica used to run it through her physical key. It's dual verification. We're missing the second half. Spencer, well, get a new one. Alondra, the issuing agency says our authorization expired the moment she left. And guess who was listed as the renewal contact? Meanwhile, over in procurement, a shipment of essential server parts got denied. The vendor system flagged Pillar Bridge as compliance unresolved. Vendor rep emailed, "Hi, we noticed the primary compliance signatory is no longer employed, and there's no replacement filed in the portal. Please update so we can resume deliveries." "Thanks." Spencer replied, no punctuation, no salutation, just, "We don't need a compliance signatory anymore. This is a new era." The vendor flagged the account permanently. That afternoon, someone tried logging into the facility management console and accidentally triggered a security hold. The backup HVAC system kicked in and set the West Wing to 92 degrees. Employees started sweating through their button-ups like baked clams. Someone in HR finally said, "I don't want to sound dramatic, but did we just fire the one person who knew how this place ran?" Yes, they did. And across town, I was sitting at Gracie's diner, sipping lukewarm coffee and chuckling into my plate of eggs. I'd seen the badge lockout thread in the company Slack. My burner login, never revoked, was still humming along nicely. Watching the panic from afar felt like watching a toddler try to assemble IKEA furniture with a spoon. No sabotage, no malice, just systems returning to default when the only person keeping them upright quietly stepped away. They'd removed the keystone without checking the ceiling. By 5 p.m., Spencer sent out a mass email titled "Change is Never Easy," trying to spin the chaos as part of a new direction. But systems don't read emails. Contracts don't believe in spin. And Jessica Sharp, she'd been the quiet glue for 11 years. Take her out, and it didn't collapse immediately. It peeled apart, layer by layer, and this was just the first crack. Archer North's office smelled like lemon cleaner and strategy. Modern glass walls, slick black chairs, espresso machines that probably cost more than my first car. I sat across from their chief operations officer, a woman named Dana with cheekbones that could slice deli meat and a handshake like she'd just won a chess match. "So," she said, tapping a folder with my resume, though, let's be honest, she didn't need it. "Pillar Bridge really let you go, fired me in the cafeteria." I stirred my coffee, said I was dead weight. Dana smiled like a wolf in heels. "That's funny, because we've been trying to figure out how Pillar Bridge ran so smoothly for a decade. I think I'm sitting across from the reason." The interview lasted 8 minutes. I walked out with a consulting contract, stock options, and a parking space with my name on it. They didn't need a warm body, they needed surgical precision. And I had a scalpel made of institutional memory and receipts. Back at Pillar Bridge, Spencer was still spinning like a lawn chair in a windstorm. Every issue was legacy system flaws. Every delay, just growing pains. Stood in front of the company during a hastily assembled town hall in the break room and said, "We're entering a lean era. We're streamlining, folks. No more dead weight. The future is agile." Then he fired Ramesh. Yes, the same Ramesh who kept the firewall from collapsing every time a junior dev clicked on a phishing link promising free gym memberships. With Ramesh gone, Spencer handed the entire IT department to his frat buddy Bryce, who once set off a building-wide lockdown trying to install Minecraft mods on a company laptop. The morning after the change, the firewall flagged a routine update as hostile and blocked internal DNS. For 5 hours, no one could access internal email. One VP had to send an emergency memo via fax. Meanwhile, the finance team hit their own wall. Vendor #1 refused to release the quarterly shipment of replacement badge fobs without updated compliance forms. Vendor hash 2 paused all transactions until the new custodian of record reauthorized their legal framework. Vendor hash 3 escalated a potential breach report due to login attempts from an unauthorized IP in, surprise, Spencer's vacation house. These weren't just inconveniences. These were cascading failures. Landra from Finance sent an internal report marked urgent, titled, Compliance Paralysis, Immediate Risk of Vendor Shutdowns. Spencer skimmed it, shrugged, and forwarded it to Bryce with the note, Can you fix this in the cloud or whatever by lunch? A junior analyst found Jessica's name still hard-coded into 3 critical spreadsheets tied to tax documentation. One formula broke. Then the next. Then payroll couldn't verify the federal tax deposit routing. Meanwhile, over at Archer North, I was settling into a temporary office with a window view of the Pillar Bridge building. I could practically see the smoke rising. Dana poked her head in. Want some popcorn? I smiled. Maybe later. I'm not done yet. Because as sweet as that job offer was, and it was, I hadn't come this far just to watch them implode from afar. Spencer hadn't just fired me. He disrespected the work. The quiet, messy, and paid overtime kind of work that holds places together when no one's watching. He thought what I did was invisible. But the thing about invisible structures, when they fail, everything falls. I wasn't going to sabotage them. That would be too easy. I was just going to let gravity do what it always does when you knock out the support beams. Let the boy king learn what it feels like to rule rubble. And trust me, I wasn't done watching. First tremor came during the quarterly compliance committee meeting, a boring little Monday ritual Spencer had planned to cancel altogether, until legal begged him not to. He showed up late, phone in hand, sipping some $11 juice with chia seeds and oat foam, whatever that is. He slumped in a chair, scrolled through his inbox, and interrupted the GC mid-sentence. Wait, who's Jessica Sharp? She's all over these documents. The general counsel, Michael, looked up like someone had just farted in church. You're kidding, right? Spencer blinked. She doesn't even work here anymore. Michael didn't blink back. She does on paper. She's still listed as the custodial officer of record on our IRS filings, our GSA submissions, and our federal vendor profiles. Her credentials validate 3 separate compliance frameworks tied to financial reporting, infrastructure access, and security audits. Spencer made a face like someone had spilled yogurt on his sneakers. Well, change it. Sir, that's not how it works. Turns out you can't just swap names on federal compliance portals like usernames on Fortnite. It requires transition logs, legal documentation, and an offboarding verification submitted within 30 days of role transfer. Spencer had fired me publicly, with 0 HR protocol. No documentation, no notification to compliance agencies, not even an exit interview. HR, in its infinite wisdom, tried to backdate the change. Uploaded some paperwork retroactively naming Bryce, yes, that Bryce, as the new compliance custodian. The system flagged it within minutes. Suspicious submission date, awaiting federal review. By noon, we'd made it onto a list no one wants to be on, provisional verification hold. And just like that, the trap was sprung. See, I didn't set the trap. I just let it sit there, year after year, like an unpulled pin in a grenade buried under 10 feet of bureaucracy. Spencer yanked it out like it was a soda tab. Then came the kill shot. The $200M deal with Elworth Tech, a merger and infrastructure rollout we'd been courting for months, hit a wall. Their compliance officer requested updated cybersecurity credentials before transferring assets. Standard due diligence. Request bounced 3 times. Then their legal team ran a credential audit. Found that all existing cybersecurity frameworks still pointed to one name, Jessica Sharp. No updates, no backups, no alternate key custodians. They reached out, not to Pillar Bridge, to me. I answered honestly. I was terminated without transition or offboarding. I am no longer affiliated with the company and cannot verify the current state of their systems. 2 days later, Elworth's legal team sent a polite but fatal email. Until compliance custody is clarified and recertified, we will pause all deal proceedings. Spencer saw red. At the next all hands, he did what insecure men in collapsing glass castles do. He mocked me. Said I was the queen of filing cabinets, that I'd built a paper empire, and that modern companies didn't need soft-skill dinosaurs like me anymore. He said all this in front of the interns, with a smirk, wearing a shirt that still had the tags on it. Meanwhile, legal wasn't laughing. Michael called an emergency session with the board's compliance subcommittee. He laid it all out. By firing the custodial officer without legal offboarding, we invalidated key compliance structures. The IRS can audit us. Our vendor accounts are frozen, and now a $200M deal is slipping through our fingers. The room fell quiet. Spencer, trying to salvage something, said it's just a little delay, we'll sort it out. Michael replied that delay could cost us federal certification, and if Elworth walks, other clients will follow. The walls weren't just cracking now, they were moaning. I wasn't watching from afar anymore, I was consulting, officially, privately, and Elworth wasn't the only client starting to ask questions. I'd warned them, quietly, professionally. All they had to do was treat the exit like it mattered. Instead, they treated it like ego theater. And now, the curtain was starting to fall. The call came at 7:47 a.m., too early for salespeople, too polite for a scammer. I let it go to voicemail while I brewed coffee, then played the message with one hand on the fridge door. Hi, Miss Sharp. This is Benjamin Kroll from Elworth Tech's legal counsel, conducting a compliance alignment review and would appreciate 5 minutes of your time regarding your previous role at Pillar Bridge. 5 minutes. That's what they always ask for. 5 minutes that pull threads. I called back. We kept it professional. Yes, I'd been terminated without notice. No, I had not been offboarded properly. Yes, I was the last verified custodial officer of record. No, I no longer held access by choice. And yes, there had been multiple login attempts to credential servers after my departure, without proper reauthentication. I didn't speculate. I didn't accuse. I just read them the facts, the same way you read someone their own will after they try to fake their death for insurance. Benjamin thanked me, that was it. By noon, Pillar Bridge's sales director noticed Elworth Tech had gone quiet. Their emails stopped being breezy and became bureaucratic. Phrases like pending review, internal hold, and continuity gap started surfacing. At 3:18 p.m., Spencer sent an all-caps message to legal and sales. Why is Elworth stalling? Fix this. Legal replied with a single attachment, a forwarded email from Benjamin Kroll. Subject: Custodial status inquiries unresolved body. Following consultation with Miss Sharp and a preliminary audit of Pillar Bridge's access logs, are pausing contract finalization pending a full compliance review. No drama, no lawsuit, just pause, the deadliest word in corporate America. The board was notified, and for the first time since Spencer's cafeteria circus, he didn't speak first. They asked pointed questions. When was Jessica officially offboarded? Who authorized replacing her with Bryce? Why is a terminated employee the only person responding to legal inquiries? Why is this the first we're hearing about unauthorized access attempts? Spencer deflected, naturally, blamed old frameworks and rigid infrastructure, threw in a buzzword salad about streamlined architecture and decentralized trust models. At one point, I'm told, he used the phrase compliance is a state of mind. A board member reportedly replied, well, Elworth's state of mind is about to cost us $250 million. Across town, I received a courier envelope with no return address. Inside, a note on thick ivory stationery. Jessica, thank you for your clarity and candor. It saved us more than time. R.H. Coup Elworth Tech. Handwritten in ink, no logos, no letterhead. Just old-school gratitude in a world that runs on back channels and buzzwords. I tucked the note into my binder, not for revenge, not for ego, for proof that you can still win clean. That silence, paired with truth, can shake the rafters harder than 1,000 angry tweets. Back at Pillar Bridge, the wolves were circling. Legal was now triple-checking every filing. Compliance was pulling daily audits. Vendors were requesting formal confirmations of Spencer's leadership qualifications. HR was meeting with external counsel just to be thorough. And Bryce, he was quietly updating his LinkedIn to open to work. The house wasn't on fire yet, but the wiring was sizzling. The smoke alarms? Oh, they'd been disabled weeks ago. by the same guy who thought root access meant admin password. Password. I didn't sabotage anything. I didn't leak. I didn't delete. I didn't hack. I didn't whisper into investor ears. I just answered the phone with the truth. And apparently that was all it took. They called it an all-hands alignment review, but everyone knew it was a 5-alarm panic meeting with a side of corporate CPR. The room was packed. Executives, legal, finance, operations, all squinting into lukewarm coffee cups and pretending not to be hungover on dread. Spencer walked in 5 minutes late, as usual, swinging a kombucha bottle and grinning like he just beat a parking ticket. He took the chair at the head of the conference table and said, "All right, what's the fire this time?" with the smirk of someone who's never been within 3 feet of accountability. That's when the founder walked in. Wasn't supposed to be there. Technically, he was on a sabbatical in Sedona, rediscovering mindfulness or whatever excuse you use when your company's being gutted by your own bloodline. But one phone call from a board member about a paused $200 million contract, and suddenly he was flying coach with a laptop full of regrets. He didn't say a word, just sat, arms crossed, waiting. Legal went first. Michael looked like he hadn't slept in 3 days, was halfway into day 4. He began calmly. "We've confirmed that Jessica Sharp was never offboarded from her role as registered custodian." Spencer rolled his eyes. "We've been through this. She's gone." Michael didn't flinch. Gone in body, not in protocol. She was the named custodian across federal, vendor, and infrastructure filings. When she was terminated without formal offboarding, no transition occurred, which means, legally, her current operational footprint is unauthorized. Spencer leaned back in his chair. "It's just paperwork. Update it. Problem solved." The CFO cleared her throat. "It's not just paperwork." She stood and slid a thick folder down the table, every page tabbed and highlighted like a crime scene. "Our insurance policy is predicated on validated custodial controls. Our vendor contracts include clauses requiring 30-day notice for personnel changes in compliance-sensitive roles. And now, because none of those steps were taken, we may be in breach of," she tapped the folder, 11 contracts, including Elworth Tech. They've already frozen all negotiations pending third-party verification. Spencer's jaw tensed. This is being blown way out of proportion. That's when the founder finally spoke. "You telling me we fired the custodian, didn't replace her, and then continued operating as if everything was covered?" Michael nodded. "Yes, sir," and attempted to backdate filings which were flagged by the federal portal. The founder blinked slowly, like a man watching his retirement fund melt into the carpet. Spencer jumped in, defensive now. "Okay, yes, mistakes were made, but it's not catastrophic. We still have relationships. Clients trust us. We'll bounce back." CFO snapped. "Spencer, a $200 million contract is not a bounce. It's a quarter of our forecast. And if Elworth backs out, others will follow." "Then we'll spin it," Spencer replied, voice rising. "We'll call it a restructure. Tell investors it's part of the new strategy. We don't need Jessica. We've moved on." Michael folded his hands. "It's not about Jessica the person. It's about Jessica the credential. She wasn't symbolic. She was infrastructure." Spencer went silent. For the first time, his mouth couldn't outrun the math. Legal shifted gears. "And just to be clear, sir, if this becomes public before we can correct it, we may face not only reputational damage but possible regulatory penalties, especially if other clients come forward." The founder sat back, rubbed his face, and exhaled through his nose like a bull staring down a matador. "Fix it," he said to no one in particular. Immediately. The deal died the next morning anyway. Elworth Tech sent a formal withdrawal. No blame, no drama, just a clean, surgical exit. "Due to internal realignment, we are discontinuing partnership discussions with Pillar Bridge Inc., effective immediately." The founder read the email 3 times before looking at Spencer. "You fired her. You didn't replace her. And now you've cost us everything." Spencer, pale now, started muttering excuses, blaming IT, HR, legacy infrastructure, even me. She didn't leave clear instructions. She made it hard to replace her. She probably planned this. That last one earned a sharp look from legal. "She didn't do anything," Michael said. "She just left. You're the one who opened the door and never thought to check if the floor was still there." Spencer stopped talking, because there was nothing left to say. The boy king had yanked the crown off someone's head and jammed it onto his own, not realizing it came with thorns. Now the blood was starting to drip, and everyone could see whose hands were shaking. The scramble had begun. But the damage, that was already done. The sign went up at 8:01 a.m. Simple black lettering on frosted glass, sharp advisory group, clean, understated, professional, just the way I liked it. No confetti, no press release. Just keys in the door, coffee in hand, and the warm hum of systems I actually trusted. The office was small, 5th floor of a newly renovated building across from Pillar Bridge HQ. My desk faced the window, which, by no accident, gave me a perfect view of the parking lot, where Spencer used to strut like he was king of a kingdom he didn't understand. The funding, quietly supplied by 2 former clients who'd left Pillar Bridge with a sour taste and airtight NDAs. They'd reached out, said they were tired of chaos disguised as innovation. Didn't want buzzwords, they wanted execution. And they knew I delivered, so I built something lean, efficient, trusted. Day 1 already profitable. Day 2 already booked. Day 3 already being whispered about. At 9:26 a.m., I spotted the founder pacing outside Pillar Bridge's side entrance, phone pressed to his ear like he was trying to suck answers through the speaker. Then came Spencer, being half-dragged, half-walked by legal into the conference wing. Same blue suit, same smug expression, now wilted like a gas station bouquet. I took a long sip of coffee, leaned back in my chair, and smiled. The building across the street looked different now. Less like a fortress, more like a crime scene no one wanted to tape off. My phone buzzed. Tina, HR, the founder's back. Spencer's been in a locked room with legal for over an hour. Word is they're asking about the lease terms. You didn't hear it from me. Someone finally asked who had authority over the infrastructure contracts. The answer was awkward. I stared at the message and let it sit. Then came another one. Marcus, IT, they just realized the campus lease still has your name on it. Someone pulled the original contract. It lists you as the transition authority in case of ownership change. Why didn't you ever tell us? I didn't answer. The lease had been rewritten during a company expansion 3 years ago. At the time, founder wanted to move fast, needed someone to sign with institutional memory and trusted authority. I'd signed it under the clause that in the event of executive absence or leadership disruption, the transition control would fall to the custodial officer until formal reassignment. That clause was never updated. Not after he stepped down, not after Spencer took over. They'd forgotten I was still on the paperwork, because Spencer never asked. And now, we're sitting in a glass room with a founder who just learned his own son had gutted the very foundation of the company without even reading the lease on the building they occupied. I imagined the scene unfolding inside, legal sliding over the documents, the founder scanning the signature, Spencer blinking, sweating, stumbling through half-sentences. The phrase irrevocable custodial clause hanging in the air like a guillotine on a slow drop. I didn't need to be in that room to hear it. Silence from across the street was loud enough. The phone buzzed again. Tina, you really played the long game, didn't you? I typed back, nope, just kept receipts. You'd be surprised how heavy they get after 11 years. She sent a laughing emoji, followed by, drinks on me when this all collapses. I turned away from the window and opened a folder labeled upcoming contracts. 3 new clients. 2 of them poached from Spencer's future partners list. None of them wanted disruption. They wanted reliability. They wanted someone who knew where the real power lived in the boring stuff. The stuff Spencer never noticed, until it bit him. The door to the conference room across the street opened. Spencer stepped out first. Alone, no folder, no laptop, no smirk. Just that dazed, lost look of a man who finally figured out he wasn't the protagonist. I didn't wave. I didn't smirk. I didn't even move, because I hadn't said my final word yet, and he had no idea what was still coming. The final meeting wasn't listed on any calendar. It wasn't broadcast in Slack, and no one live tweeted it with fake enthusiasm and corporate emojis. This was the kind of meeting that happens behind closed doors, with phones left outside, and voices kept low even when the sky is falling. Everyone on the board was there. Founder at the head, legal to his left, Spencer nowhere near the center this time. He was flanked by counsel, a stack of binders, and what looked like 3 different printouts of the same lease agreement with my name highlighted in neon yellow. The GC, Michael, looked like he was about to deliver a eulogy, not a report. He opened with one line: "You didn't fire an employee. You dissolved your root access." Then he started the autopsy. Page after page, clause after clause, system after system, every one tied to my credentials. Compliance renewal, me. Infrastructure leases, me. Vendor verification tokens, me. Federal reporting certs, me. And the kicker, security tokens. The very keys Spencer had demanded I hand over in the cafeteria like they were a set of janitor rings. Turns out, those keys were encrypted hardware credentials, biometrically bound, legally registered, and tied to multi-million-dollar systems. Were never meant to change hands with a handshake or a tantrum. "You fired her without revocation," Michael said, slowly turning a page, "and then she handed you the physical tokens that, without her biometric verification, auto-disabled half your systems as a fail-safe." The founder asked, barely above a whisper, "Wait, the shutdown was automatic?" "Yes," Michael replied, "triggered by an unresolved credential orphaning event. The system assumed it was a breach." He paused. "Because, in a way, it was." Spencer tried to speak, but he didn't have words, just a dry throat and a 1,000-yard stare aimed at the glass of water he hadn't touched. The board let it all settle. They didn't yell, they didn't storm out. The damage wasn't dramatic. It was structural, quiet, invisible, like mold behind drywall. By the time you smell it, it's already eaten the foundation. Across the street, I was reviewing a contract with a new client. Reached out after Elworth walked. Heard whispers, wanted certainty. I gave it to them, but I kept my morning open for a reason. At 9:42 a.m., I left the office and crossed the street. I didn't sneak in. I didn't strut. I walked past reception like I always used to. Familiar steps, same hallway. The boardroom door was closed, but the tension leaked through the glass like smoke through a vent. The receptionist looked up, startled. "Miss Sharp," I smiled, held up a small metal ring, 2 keys. One physical, one biometric token, both obsolete now. "Just returning some trash," I said, dropping them into the tray on the counter. She blinked. "Should I tell them?" I took one step back, looked toward the boardroom, and offered the faintest smile, the kind you give when the curtain falls. "Tell them," I said, turning on my heel to get new keys. I didn't have to wait for a response. I never looked back, because revenge wasn't the goal. Understanding was, and now they understood the hard way. Appreciate you sticking around, you wise old rebels. Smash that subscribe button, or this fossil might just cause another epic fiasco.